Legends of Ash. Why cats don't worry about the future. By Stoiccat. I was 29 the first time I met Ash, a scruffy gray tomcat with one notched ear and eyes like chipped amber. It was a bitter January evening, the kind where the wind bites through your coat, and the streets of my little coastal town felt like a ghost story. Empty, cold, shadowed. I just lost my job at the cannery, a gig I'd hated but needed, and I was walking home with a paycheck stuck in my pocket and a future that looked like a blank page torn in half. That's when I saw him, perched on the rusted fire escape outside my apartment, staring down at me like he'd been waiting. I stopped, breath fogging in the air, and stared back. "What do you want?" I muttered, half expecting an answer. He didn't move, just flicked his tail, a slow, deliberate swipe, and kept those eyes on me. I shrugged, climbed the stairs, and let myself in. But when I glanced out the window 10 minutes later, he was still there, unfazed by the sleet starting to fall. Something about him stuck with me, his calm, his stillness, the way he didn't seem to care that the world was a mess. I opened the window, tossed out a scrap of tuna from can I crack for dinner, and watched him eat it without a hint of hurry. That was the beginning. The cat who didn't flinch. I've been a worrier my whole life. Growing up, I'd lie awake plotting escape routes from disasters that never came. Fires, floods, my dad walking out again after one of his benders. By the time I hit my 20s, that habit had hardened into a constant hum of what-ifs. What if I couldn't pay rent? What if Clara, my girlfriend of 3 years, got tired of my brooding? What if I never amounted to anything more than a guy stacking fish crates in a town nobody left? The future wasn't a horizon. It was a storm cloud I couldn't outrun. Ashton lived like that. I named him after the gray streak down his back like ash dusted over coal. And he started showing up every night. Same spot, same stare. I'd feed him scraps, sometimes sit out there with him, my boots dangling over the edge while he sprawled beside me. He didn't flinch at the wind, didn't pace when the rain soaked his fur. Once a car backfired down the street, loud as a gunshot, and I jumped, heart hammering. Ash just blinked, licked a paw, and settled back down. I envied him. "What's your secret?" I asked one night, half joking. He yawned, stretched, and I swear he looked at me like I was the dumb one. That's when I started reading Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus. Looking for answers I couldn't find in a bottle or a paycheck. Marcus wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." It hit me hard. Ash didn't worry about tomorrow because he didn't need to. He lived in an hour. Every leap, every nap, every scrap of fish, and that was enough. I wanted that. So I watched him, learn from him, let him teach me why cats don't fret about what's coming. Lesson 1. The present is enough. The cannery firing me wasn't the end of the world, but it felt like it then. Rent was due in 2 weeks, and my savings were a jar of quarters I'd been too proud to cash in. I'd sit on the fire escape with Ash, chain smoking, running numbers in my head. How long till I was broke? How many shifts I needed some dye bar to scrape by? My mind was a hamster wheel, spinning toward a future I couldn't see. Ash didn't care. He'd curl up next to me, purring like a busted engine, and I'd watch him. Really watch. He wasn't plotting his next meal or wondering where he'd sleep when the snow hit. He ate when I fed him, slept when he was tired, moved when he felt like it. One night, I ran out of tuna, handed him a crust of stale bread instead. He sniffed it, took a bite, and kept purring. No tantrum, no panique. The present was enough for him. Bread or fish, fire escape or alley. He took it as it came. I tried it. Woke up the next day, stubbed out my cigarette, and said, "Today's what I've got." No job, fine. I walk the docks, ask around. No money, okay. I'd eat rice and beans, skip the bar. Clara hadn't called in a week. Whatever. I'd sit with Ash, let the quiet fill me. It wasn't easy. My brain fought it. dragging me back to what if, but I'd look at him sprawled there like a king on a rusty throne and pull myself back. Marcus had it right. Don't let your imagination be crushed by life as a whole. Stick with the present. Ash lived that, and I started to. Lesson 2. Fear is a phantom. Clara left 3 months after the job did. I'd seen it coming. Her silences got longer, her kisses shorter, but when she packed her bag and walked out, it still gutted me. I need space, she said, same old line, and I didn't beg. Just nodded, watched her go, felt the floor drop out. That night, I sat with Ash, rain drumming the metal steps, and let the panic rise. What if I never loved again? What if I was doomed to this empty apartment, this empty life? Ash jumped onto the railing, balancing like it was nothing, even as the wind howled. A gust hit, strong enough to rattle the fire escape, and I flinched, grabbing the edge. He didn't. He sat there, tail flicking, eyes half closed, like the storm was a lullaby. I laughed, sharp-bitter, and thought, he's not scared of falling. Why am I? Seneca wrote. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Ash didn't imagine the drop. He didn't picture a future where he slipped, crashed, died. He stayed where he was. And if he fell, he'd deal with it then. I started letting go of the phantoms. Claire was gone. So what? I couldn't force her back. No job. Fine, I'd find another. The future wasn't a monster unless I made it one. I catch myself spiraling. What if rent's late? What if I'm alone forever? And I'd stop, breathe, look at Ash dozing in a puddle of moonlight. He didn't fear what might be. He met what was. Day by day, I did too. Lesson 3. Control what you can. A week after Clara left, the landlord hiked my rent. $50 more. A gut punch I couldn't dodge. I paced the apartment, cursing, picturing eviction, homelessness, the whole spiral. Ash watched from the windowsill, grooming his paws like I wasn't losing it 5 feet away. I snapped. You don't get it, do you? This is bad. Beyond, stretched, hopped down to nudge my leg. I sank to the floor, let him climb into my lap, and sat there, his warmth seeping into me. Epictetus hit me then. There is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond the power of our will. The rent hike, out of my hands. The landlord's greed, not mine to fix. But my reaction, that was mine. Ash didn't care about tomorrow's shelter. He'd find a corner, a box, a ledge. I could too. I stopped pacing, called a buddy at the docks, scored a gig, unloading crates. It wasn't much, but it covered the extra. Ash taught me to shrug off what I couldn't change, to claw my way through what I could. Lesson 4. Accept the inevitable. Spring came, and with it, a storm that flooded half the town. My apartment took a hit. Water seeping under the door, soaking the rug, shorting out the heater. I spent a day mopping, swearing, worrying about mold, repairs, costs I couldn't cover. Ashton, he left on the counter, shook the wet from his fur, and napped there, dry and unbothered. I envied him again, his ability to take the mess as it was. No fuss, no fretting. Marcus wrote, what need is there to weep over parts of life? The whole of it calls for tears. Life was a flood, literal and not, and fighting it didn't stop the water. Ashton mourned his soggy paws. He moved to higher ground. I started doing the same. Heater's dead. I'd borrow a space heater from neighbor. Rug's ruined. I'd toss it, live with bare floors. The future would come. Mold or no mold. And I'd meet it when it did. Acceptance wasn't surrender. It was strength. And Ash had it in spades. Lesson 5. Find joy in the small. By summer, I'd settled into the dock job. Hard work, decent pay, salt air in my lungs. Ash still came every night, and I'd upgraded his scraps to proper cat food, a dented can from the corner store. One evening, I sat out with a beer, watching him chase a moth across the fire escape. He'd pounce, miss, pounce again, pure glee in every leap. No sulking when the moth flitted off. I laughed, first time in months, and it hit me. He didn't need the wind to enjoy the hunt. Seneca said, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." Ash lived that. A moth, a nap in the sun, a pat for me. That was his world, and it was enough. I started looking for my own moths. The way the harbor glowed at dawn, the creak of the docks under my boots. A kid at the store trading me a candy bar for a scratched record. Small, sure, but real. The future didn't need to promise me a mansion or a muse. Today had plenty if I stopped chasing tomorrow. Lesson 6. Trust the flow. Fall brought a new scare. Ash didn't show for 3 days. I'd whistle for him, leave food out, scan the alleys, stomach sinking. Had he gotten hit by a car? Caught by some jerk with a trap. I'd grown attached, more than I'd admit, and the not knowing clawed at me. On the 4th night, he sauntered back, limping, a scratch on his flank, but alive. I scooped him up, cursed him out, fed him double. He purred through it all, unfazed by whatever he'd faced. Epictetus again. Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens. Ash didn't worry when he wandered off. He trusted he'd find his way. I couldn't control his roamings, his risks, but I could trust he'd come back, or accept if he didn't. That habit stuck, letting go of the reins, riding the current. When the dock boss cut my hours later that month, I didn't panic. I'd find a way, or I wouldn't. Ash had taught me the flow was a mind of force. Lesson 7. Face the worst. Winter rolled in again, and I caught a flu that knocked me flat. Fever, chills, a cough that rattled my ribs. Lying there, sweating through the sheets, I started spinning. What if it's worse? What if I can't work? What if I die alone in this dump? Ash curled up beside me, warm against my side, and I watched him breathe. Slow, steady, not a care beyond that moment. Marcus wrote, "Think of the life you have lived until now as over, and, as a dead man, see what's left as a bonus." Ash didn't dread death or sickness. He'd face it if it came. No rehearsal needed. I borrowed that. Picture the worst. Penniless, alone, gone, and let it sit. Then I thought, if it happens, I'll deal. If not, I'm here now. The fever broke 2 days later, and I got up, shaky but alive. Fear burned out like a spent match. Lesson 8. Live without regret. The year after Ash found me, I started writing again. Short pieces, nothing grand, just stories about the docks that town him. I'd sit with him on a fire escape. Notebook open, scribbling while he dozed. One night, I read him a line. The cat doesn't look back, doesn't wonder. He walks, and that's his world. He flipped an ear, unimpressed, and I grinned. He didn't regret his scars, his fights, his nights in the cold. He lived and moved on. Seneca's words sealed it. Life is long if you know how to use it. Ash didn't waste his on yesterday's battles or tomorrow's ghosts. I stopped too. Quit replaying Claire's exit, the cannery's pink slip, my dad's last raspy breath. I wrote, worked, sat with my cat, and let the rest fall away. The future wasn't a thread. It was a blank page, and I'd fill it when I got there. The cat who knew. Ash disappeared one spring, 2 years in. No limp, no warning, just gone. I searched, left food out, but he didn't come back. I mourned him quietly, missed his weight beside me, but I didn't break. He taught me too well. Cats don't worry about the future because they don't need to. They trust the moment, take the hits, keep moving. I'd learned that from him, from Marcus, from a life that kept swinging. I still sit on that fire escape some nights, notebook in hand, the town humming below. The wind's cold, the rent's due, the future's a shadow I can't touch. But I don't flinch anymore. Ash showed me why cats don't worry. The present's enough. Fear's a lie. Control's a choice. And life's too short to borrow tomorrow's trouble. I'm stoiccat now. scarred, steady, free. And that's enough.